Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Well, hello there, J-Man.
Well, hello there, Chris.
We have a really great episode planned today for our 97th episode of Stoked. Of course, the free-to-play details have come out, so we're going to talk about that in the news segment. Also, a new Ask Cryptic this week. Some good nuggets in there.
Absolutely. Way more than usual, to be honest.
Yeah. And then after we go through some tweet leaks, we're going to jump into the Foundry Files, followed by community feedback. We've got a couple of fleeties join us to talk about what they do in their fleet to get over the content drought in STO. Also, a new question and the results from last week's poll.
About whether or not free-to-play was a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, we wanted your gut reaction, and you guys gave it to us. And I think, honestly, we're both surprised by the results. You guys probably will
We'll share
be
those
too.
later, but yes.
All right, let's talk about, wait.
What?
I did mention it was episode 97.
You did.
Well, we're going to talk about the free-to-play stuff in a second. Let's talk about episode 100 really quick.
Oh, we're going to go ahead and tell them. Okay.
Do you want to do it, or do you want to do it at the end of the show?
Let's do it now.
All right, okay. So we've been trying to figure out what to do for our 100th episode because really, I mean, it feels like it's, I don't know, at the same time, a really long time, but it's all gone by so quick.
And ever since about episode 92, it feels like it's just been dragging on.
Yeah. It really feels like it slowed down in the 90s.
Yeah.
But anyways, we've decided, this of course, everything's subject to change, but we've decided for our 100th episode, we're going to get in the car and we're going to drive down to Cryptic Studios.
Road trip.
We're taking a Stoked road trip. We'll probably bring 3 or 4 cameras with us. Go down there and chat with the guys. Maybe get a little peek at what they're working on.
We're working very hard with their PR folks to get as much information as we can out of them, hoping for a few exclusives.
Jeremy, curious eyebrow is curious.
But I'm also hoping, this is just brainstorming, but I'm hoping that we actually get to meet some of the Cryptic folks we don't usually see on camera
Totally,
and stuff
right?
like that. Like maybe some of the QA staff or, just the other guys that are, I know they're fans of Stoked.
Maybe the guy that cleans Stahl's office. I hear they got a guy that does just that. So that'd be good.
He comes equipped with a shredder.
Let's meet him.
Built in.
All right, J-Man. So that'll all hopefully air if everything goes as planned in our 100th episode. We're also maybe working on a couple other things, but who knows? It's all going to be pretty hectic. Hopefully, you guys won't have to miss anything. You'll just tune in for episode 100, and everything will be there, and it'll be epic. So that'll be
Fingers
cool.
crossed.
All right, J-Man, let's talk about the free-to-play stuff.
Well, they brought us the Matrix, so we are seeing now it's a work in progress.
The
and
Matrix.
That's actually going to bleed into our community feedback later on, so listen closely. And if you already haven't seen the free-to-play Matrix, we do have a link in our show
Well, let's
notes.
attack at it from this angle because one of, surprisingly, you obviously there's a couple of major reactions out there you could pretty much sum up. But one that I heard right away was it almost seems like there's not enough that isn't available to free-to-play. Like it seems like free-to-play is getting too much. They're getting free-to-play has, all of this stuff and there's not enough incentive to pay. So let's maybe just start with what you don't get if you don't put up the money. What do you think? What do you think of that?
Well, I think that the limitations that they have in place do feel a little light, but from a business standpoint, like if I was Dan Stahl, first of all, I'd come on our show more frequently. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah.
But anyway. There's a whole slew of reasons why you want to give the free to play players as much
that, by the way.
as you can.
Yeah.
And with the option of still enticing them to buy things, but you really want them to
show up. And if there's not a good enough reason for them to show up,
if they're running into paywalls left and right, they're not going to want to stick around.
It's a funny thing is you've experienced is you for the Morgue you try out a ton of different MMOs and you start getting frustrated right away if you start hitting walls that you feel like they're trying to milk you.
Absolutely.
And it kind of just takes you out of it. And it seems like that audience, that free audience, is a little more fickle to that kind of stuff than you'd think at first.
Yeah.
Since they're kind of freeloading in a sense.
Yeah.
But they still have a very high level of expectation of what free-to-play means.
By and large, I think that people that play to free-to-play MMOs want to be shown something that's impressive.
Yeah.
They want to love a game.
Yeah.
But the reason they hop around so much is because there's so many out there that just turn them off.
Well, and they
want
to be able to play for free.
Yeah.
And
still enjoy the full experience.
It seems okay now. That said, we'll get into this in a second, but let's talk about what you're not going to get as a free-to-play player. Because I know, of course, you're going to have like limited bag slots. You're going to have limited bank slots, pretty severely limited bank slots.
And they've mentioned some limitations on creating a fleet. They haven't told us exactly what it was. Maybe that you need a gold member to be one of your founding fleet members or something.
It sounds like Vivox is going to have chat ads in it, possibly. And, you're not going to be able to edit Foundry. You're not going to be able to create or edit Foundry missions, but you'll be able to play them.
You'll also have limited energy credit storage. And again, they haven't told us the exact limits on some of these things, inventory space and energy credit storage and things like that.
And you're not going to get vet rewards.
Right. Now, I think the big limitation here that many free-to-play players are going to run up against is limited BOF amounts.
Yeah, they're purchasable, though.
Yeah, you can buy more BOF slots, absolutely. And
that seems like a pretty big game changer, though.
Well, what we've been told is that they'll have just enough bridge officers to equip a full Tier 5 ship.
Oh, okay.
And that's it.
That's not a big deal.
Which means that they have to use the same bridge officers for their ship as they use for the ground.
But
most premium players and VAs that I know these days have separate teams.
They do,
for that.
and that does work better, especially the way you can do their skills and things like that. But the fact of the matter is, from a role-playing standpoint and from a Star Trek standpoint, my bridge officers are part of my co-stars, and I beam down a lot of times with my original bridge crew. Not always, but a lot of times if I think the mission allows for it, I take that crew because they're the little faces I see. They're the ones I visualize sitting at their stations on the bridge.
TOS, Enterprise, Next Generation, Voyager,
it's not a separate crew.
You never do an away team with some secondary team.
So I kind of agree with the people that are saying there's not enough here. All of those things, like if I had to play within those restrictions, I would be able to play this game.
I think so too.
Especially because I don't avoid using the C-Store. So, if you leverage the C-Store with these restrictions, well, you really don't have that many restrictions.
Right. Now, let's talk just a little bit. I have one more commentary about content to talk about in just a minute here, but I want to mention just some of the general changes that everybody's going to see when this free-to-play thing comes out.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I think the number one, the kind of sticking point, is the KDF thing. That they're rolling it back to level 25.
You don't even unlock it until you're like a commander level character. And it sounds like then once you unlock the KDF ability, you're going to start at like a level 18 KDF, which is like what, Lieutenant Commander?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range?
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
But they're also saying that like you start at 18 and then you do all the walkthrough tutorial stuff for KDFs and end up as a commander.
There's been a few things that I think could have been done a little better in the free-to-play matrix to make the wording a little more clear. And this level thing is an example because if you remember back, if you go rewatch early STOkes, there was actually a pretty big push to get the mindset out there that STO doesn't even have level numbers. Yeah. STO doesn't have levels. And then, that's kind of gone away just because of practicality reasons. But to actually differentiate things with these numbers that we, as players of the game, don't necessarily map to anything.
I still forget what the top level of the game is.
I know what a Lieutenant Commander is. I know what, Lieutenant Commander 6 is. I understand that. I don't know if I know what a level 15 or 18 character is.
Right.
Without, a range there. I know the range.
It takes an extra amount of brain space
I wish that would have been thought of because there's been a couple of other little things that are worded in there that I thought, I don't like. Okay, I'll give you another example. They say that the lifetime and monthly subscribers are going to get 400 promotional points. Now, I kind of assume that's C-Store points, but the chat room has explained to me that it's C-Store points that you can only spend on STO items.
Yes, and actually Stormshade came out and confirmed that on the forums as well. So.
But again, that promotional points at first, I was like, I've never heard that term used before.
No. It was necessary for them to clarify that statement. So you're right. The Matrix could have been clearer in several different ways. And actually, if you've been watching it since they rolled it out this last Tuesday, they have made a number of changes to it, including a number of little pop-ups that come up when you highlight certain things to more thoroughly explain it.
Yeah. But what other big changes? So you got the Klingon stuff. What other big changes do you think everyday players are going to see?
All of the premium races that are currently sold on the C-Store are going to become free in some way. Now, I'm assuming this is a big assumption.
For people that pay up.
No, free.
For everybody?
For everybody.
Okay.
Unlockable through the game. I'm assuming this is going to be coming with the DOF system. So that now instead of having to buy option of having a Tellarite or whatever, the Anar, let's say, for example, or a Cation Bridge Officer. So right now, if you want those, you have to buy them on the C-Store. Yeah. But in the future, once free-to-play rolls out, anybody can potentially earn them, whether they're a premium, gold, silver, whatever, as long as they do like the correct missions in the DOF system.
That's awesome.
To unlock them.
I know, of course, another big change is coming with all of this is going to be the introduction of dilithium and the huge changes that's going to make in the economy.
Yeah.
Pay or free, you're going to see those changes.
I'm so looking forward to seeing that actual system, getting my hands on it, because that might require some math.
Yeah, I think it will, and there's going to be some questions around like, is there going to be a time where you're going to be able to buy something? You're going to be able to buy something more with your credits than you are with dilithium. There's been some discussions about that in Jupiter Force regarding that there may be a better time to buy now than there is when the exchange rate is done. Right. Any other big changes you think the general game is going to see?
Well, I wouldn't say that this is a change, but this might just be a clarification error. But the under the Foundry creation thing on this matrix, it says for gold members, so the people that subscribe, 8 starting slots is the wording that they're using
I put something in the Ask Cryptic that kind of gives more information on that I think we'll get to in a little bit.
Well, here's the quote then. We're discussing the exact criteria for how gold players will unlock new Foundry slots and hope to have this in place shortly after the free-to-play launch. Okay, well, that's potentially really good news for folks like Admiral Murphy that's done the whole Deep Space 11 thing.
Yeah, and he wants more.
He's out of slots.
Yeah.
But he has a whole slew of fanfic out there that he wants to create in the Foundry.
Admiral Murphy wants more slots. He needs those slots.
So now if there's going to be a way to either earn those through the in-game actions or to buy them on the C-Store, I mean, it'd kind of suck to have to spend money to show off your creativity.
Well, it's not just that. There is undeniable value that these Foundry authors, at least the good ones, are adding to the game. And so to charge them to add content to your game is a little bit of a rough spot. The flip side is the passionate ones are likely to pay.
Yeah.
And we also know
kind of a rough sticking point. You got to sit on that fence.
We've also, from our conversations with Al and other developers, that we know that the Foundry slots can take a lot of resources.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a premium thing for them to offer up. So, yeah, it's a tough spot.
Yeah, it is.
Anything else?
Maybe there would be multiple options. What I'd love to see is, sell it on the C-Store. That makes sense. Yeah. But then I would love to see some sort of community-driven effort to get extra slots awarded to good authors.
I was just thinking of that, like something based on the review, but then you're going to have, have some people trying to game that. But
Yep. I know. And that's actually pretty much it, except did you want to comment at all on the 400-point stipend?
I think it's interesting. Because that's essentially $5-6 a month? $5 a month?
Yeah.
So it essentially makes your sub only $10 a month.
Yeah.
But you have to spend that $5 on STO points. But it also, I think, the bigger thing it alludes to is a confidence that there's going to be enough trickle of content into the C-Store that they're going to have to justify a way to give people. It's almost like It's almost like how corn production in the U.S. is subsidized. It's like they're subsidizing our purchases of the C-Store because
compared Star Trek Online to farming.
Yeah, well, I hope what it means is they think they're going to have so much dang content added to that C-Store on a regular basis that they have to give this money away in order to keep the people from screaming. And that could be a good sign of intention.
I think that a stipend is absolutely a good idea across the industry. You guys know I watch the whole industry because my other show, Morg, blah, blah, blah. But I think that a stipend is a must-have in a free-to-play model for any subscription. Or you could also do a discount. But one way or the other.
Oh, interesting. The discount
you have to offer some sort of a monetary incentive for people to pay.
Does anybody know, do the Cryptic points, the STO points that you're awarded every month, do they roll over? Like if I don't use my 400 points, they do. So I could have
absolutely.
So I could save up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's badass.
Yeah.
See, I like that. See, I was thinking they were use them or lose them points.
You can not only save them up, but once dilithium comes out, you can sell them to other players for dilithium.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That could be cool too. I guess my main concern is with all of the free-to-play stuff, outside of all of this, is it's really going to be down to Cryptic now to produce content. We just don't have the track record I think all of the player base would like to see. I mean, it's there's been spurts like you said on the pre-show that have been awesome.
Yeah, like a golden age when we were getting featured episodes on a regular basis.
But there's also been times where just everything's been lined up and we just need one more thing before content production's really going. And wait, we got to do this. Wait, we can't, not yet. But then once
really
this is
felt
done,
that a lot recently with we need ground combat revamp to be in. And no, we need the new code merger to be in. And then we need the DOF system to be in. Now we need free-to-play to be in.
Once you're full-fledged free-to-play and you're sticking it out there and you're waving it for the whole world to see, you've got to produce the content.
And it's even more important because now that Perfect World is in charge of this, they very much believe in the fact that you don't gate your content off from free players. That basically they feel that you need to supply them with a playground that they feel the need to buy new toys to play with in that playground.
I think that's the fair. If you change your perspective as somebody who's been paying for this game, we're both lifetimers, which means by this point we're playing for free because we bought it
before it launched.
So we're already freeloaders. But I think if you look at it from the perspective of somebody new coming in, that playground model is the right model to bring in a whole new group of people. Because here is the long-term play, and I kind of think it could be semi-elegant what Cryptic and CBS and Perfect World are trying to pull off, is you have new content coming in the form of featured episodes, which we'll get to in the Ask Cryptic, because we know those featured episodes aren't coming until free-to-play launches. Okay, so boom, that's flashy just right there. New Star Trek missions you can play weekly, and by the way, you can do it for free. And guess what this new weekly series does? It introduces a new Enterprise E that's been voted on by the Star Trek fans F, right? Voted on by the Star Trek fans and signed off by CBS. And it's going to be introduced in this game, which you can now play for free. And you do that you splash that on StarTrek.com, you put that in Star Trek magazines, you put it around fleet fan groups around the country, and that is a pretty good combo. And that's, it's a really nice introduction. And that's why I think they want to make sure that when people get here, this playground's available to them.
Yep. And rolling out on a regular, steady basis as much as is possible.
Yeah.
They want to show off. I mean, that whole golden age period, a lot of people playing right now experience that and are still sticking around because we want to experience it again.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was that good.
It was that good.
We want the good stuff.
So if you get free players in and then hit them in the face with that, with a new golden age right off the bat,
well, and
it's going to get them hooked.
And it's going to get them spending.
Yeah.
And if you get them spending, then you can hire more devs, and then you can do that content production. So maybe that's part of the plan is because they have a limited team now and they know they have to produce. You build up, you store up what you've got a big push at launch, and then that big push, if it gives you good returns, justifies the continued expense on building out more content.
Yeah.
So I think while it's it's a hard pill for some of us to swallow.
It's a pretty damn hard pill at this point.
It could be good long term for the game. In fact, why don't we just get into the Ask Cryptic, because a lot of this is covered in there.
And this is going to kind of be all over the place because the Ask Cryptic was all over the place, but there were a lot of good things.
There were a lot of good things. I did feel like some of them were vague.
Yeah.
Like sometimes if I could give an overall one-word definition of this Ask Cryptic, it would be vague. But the things we got when you read between the tea leaves are good. So it's vague with goodies in there. It almost makes it more like a game.
Oh, there are so many goodies in here, just hiding there and waiting to be picked out by people like us.
Let's do a couple of them, because I know we both grabbed some.
Just as in terms of feature episodes coming in the future, there's one that I don't think we've heard announced before, is that Sto is planning to put in the Voth as a featured bad guy. Now, if you recall the Voth, they were this dinosaur race that had originally evolved on the planet Earth and left many, many millions, billions of years ago and ended up somehow in the Delta Quadrant.
They were in that Voyager episode Distant Origin. I just did a quick memory alpha check, and that is season 3, episode 23.
Right. Now, I didn't like the whole idea of this. The idea of another race having evolved on our planet prior to that, it kind of goes in the face of a lot of science. But it's sci-fi. Have some fun with it.
It did have a really cool thing in it, J-Man, that I would love to see in the game, though.
What is that?
They had this awesome city ship that Voyager actually travels inside of, which would be the hotness in Sto. And I'm just saying, if I could run around inside that and... Oh, I don't want to shoot at dinosaurs, but I kind of want to shoot at dinosaurs. I guess maybe we should
they get hit with some sort of de-evolution virus and they end up at dinosaurs?
They get aggressive, right?
And you have to take out T-Rex and raptors and stuff.
I also, if I can't shoot them, I would like a pet dinosaur. So maybe we can work one of those things out.
Yes.
But this does seem like it'd be some good fruitful ground for Sto. So that was a neat little nugget in there.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. What else did we get?
Let's see. New, very few assets are being added to the Foundry prior to the free-to-play launch. This was a confirmation that kind of struck home a little bit because I have been wanting to do a sequel to my Foundry mission.
I think this is something the next time
I kind of want new toys to play with next time I go into the Foundry.
This is something I think we need to get an answer from. Next time we get somebody from Cryptic on the show is where does getting new content into the Foundry sit on the priority list? Because what Dan said in this answer was that overall feature improvements to the Foundry, that comes from the Foundry Cryptic team that's also working on Neverwinter.
Primarily focused on Neverwinter.
Maybe Champions?
Possibly.
And then, a lot of those changes get backported to Sto. But the thing that's fine. Okay, we're not going to get Foundry engine changes until the main group is ready. But what about some of the great assets that just haven't made it in there yet?
The only asset that they mentioned that they do want to open up is some of the social zones, and I'm assuming that this was referring to the new academies, Starfleet Academy and Kronos Academy, that they would be unlocked for Foundry access.
I just don't understand why you are choking the one source of content generation right now. And I don't mean to downplay other content that's made it, but I mean new story-based content where you actually play a story-based mission.
Calling it choking, I think, is a little harsh. But
I don't know. What new content, what new assets are making it in there?
They're not. I understand, and I actually agree with what you're saying.
Now is the best time to invest in the Foundry.
Yeah. Even if it's just art assets, new furniture, new plants, new trees,
what I just don't know is if maybe the process of converting something from an episode mission, that asset into an object that's usable in the Foundry, maybe that is so massively time-consuming that they can't justify it.
Maybe.
But if it is not, if you could just stick a person on it and have them do it for 8 hours a day for a week and we could get 10 new things, I don't understand why that wouldn't be done unless there's something else that just prevents it.
Well, that one thing that prevents it might be that those people are on the content team. and they're trying to make new content.
Yeah, I understand, and that's what I'm saying. Maybe something like that's going on. That's just that's what it is.
Yeah.
It'd just be so awesome to get some more stuff in there, even if it's just one thing every now and then. All right, moving on. Sorry.
Well, I have some bad news for you, Chris. Because repeatedly in this Ask Cryptic, one of the kind of overarching things that kept cropping up again and again is that we're not getting any new content until free-to-play launches.
Well, now, come on now. Okay, so there was a couple of different things said, but it sounds like we're going to start seeing some stuff hit Tribble. Maybe possibly holodeck. We don't know. Late October.
We're seeing that free-to-play beta will be coming out in late October. So that they're all
and they said that we'd see the DOF system when the free-to-play system goes beta.
So it's coming soon. I think the timelines are quick enough that we won't suffer that much. But it goes back to what we were saying earlier. We keep being told that the content is coming after this next thing. And now we're told one more time it's after this next thing.
It seems like the biggest delay here is not the DOF system. Sounds like it's kind of semi on its regular schedule, if I'm understanding. But it sounds like we're getting our biggest delays in the featured episodes.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Which hurts the most. Mm-hmm. Although the DOF system's going to be epic too, so
it really is, and it's coming with a load of content, not the traditional mission content that we're used to, but new
eyeballs
things to do.
that will read content that is new will happen.
Yep.
All right.
That's a very eloquent way of putting it, Chris.
Thank you, J-Man. What else came out of the Ask Cryptic?
Perfect World is going to help with localization efforts.
Dun, dun, dun!
We know actually, we have a pretty big fan base overseas in Europe, like Germany and a couple guys in France that have emailed me in the past. So
some of them are in the chat room right now.
I think it's great. I think that they've been waiting for this. There was apparently some half-ass localization efforts made a long time ago. Never really panned out. None of the new content, none of the featured episodes that have come, or the board content, or any of that stuff has been localized at all. So hearing that they're finally going to get a native language version of STO, first of all, I'm really glad that this is a confirmation. I had a feeling that Perfect World could help with this. It's nice to hear that they're going to.
Yeah.
Because they already have the infrastructure in place for
and they're big on it.
Yeah, they love being international.
Wouldn't it be neat if dialogue boxes could be wiki editable? I mean, they wouldn't go live until they were approved, but like if you could have Foundry throughout the entire game and just the community could fix this stuff.
The whole game is wiki content?
Yeah, just wikitize all of the content in the game. And then,
nope.
No, you wouldn't like that?
Nope.
That'd probably be a bad thing, huh, J-Man?
Very bad thing.
All right, what else we get in the Ask Cryptic? One thing, just playing off of Perfect World, because there's a thing in there about PvP.
Yeah.
Stahl said PvP will have a strong focus in 2012.
Because Perfect World is very big on PvP.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah?
Looking over the Perfect World games, aren't they bigger on PvP sort of playing more of a role in endgame content?
Yes, absolutely.
So wouldn't that make actually a lot of sense for STO? Because then once you've hit end game, you would, I guess a lot of people do this now already, but you'd build up alts with the intention of, I'm going to play through these series of missions and get these series of things for PvP
Well,
content.
And not just alts, but once you get to the end game and you've progressed through the entire game, you have basically every toy that will be at your disposal is there. So you never have to
Now you're ready to jump into PvP more than ever.
Right.
So that kind of makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Plus, it's sort of its own self-perpetuating content. Mm-hmm. So I bet
actually, Roguice in the chat room is actually pointing out that Perfect World feels that PvP is a valid end game.
Yeah, that's what kind of my impression was too. So when he says PvP will have a strong focus in 2012, I gotta wonder if he's talking maybe Season 5, because remember before we speculated 2012 and Season 5 are interchangeable a little bit.
Well, this bleeds into another thing that we saw hinted at and not actually confirmed, but it had nice fancy capital letters on it.
Ooh.
In the Ask Cryptic, the term fleet progression cropped up again. This has been something mentioned offhandedly in the past, but as being tied in with the fleet starbase system. And this was, I think, the first time it's actually cropped up in the Ask Cryptic. Fleet progression is like gaining experience for your fleet, gaining levels as a fleet.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
And that is slated to be a part of Season 5.
That's going to play in well to our community feedback question.
Oh God. That's going to create a whole new community.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's exactly what fleets need.
You know what I want to mention on the subject of PvP in 2012? Can we please get our territorial PvP war?
Yeah, I know.
I was actually not too long ago watching some of our old episodes of STOked. We did an interview with Craig Zinkovich like 2 weeks prior to launch that said that they wanted a territorial PvP war in there 2 years ago.
I know. Well, of course they do. It's just, and we also want featured episodes, J-Man.
We do.
Now, one thing that I want to just talk about before we move on is just some sort of maybe just your thoughts on this is Stahl, I won't say admitted, but sort of said, yeah, you know what? STO is kind of a solo playable MMO. You can be by yourself.
It's very solo heavy was his exact quote. And yes, I agree. It's nice to hear it admitted, kind of.
It's not the first time. We've actually he's actually said it on the show before when we were talking about right before the features episodes came out with the Davidians. He was talking about there's going to be a new social zone because we want to get players together more. Yep. So and also if you
and that's actually the core of his point that it was mentioned in the Ask Cryptic. They were talking about new social zones, new things to do in social zones.
I think it was in regards to
Andorian, Vulcan, and stuff
No,
like
I think it was. I might be wrong, but I think it was in regards to the new ground encounters for the Borgs.
Yeah, it was kind of a spin-off.
You're gonna have a bunch of like when you go into a Borg encounter now, you see a bunch of other players in their ships, but now you're gonna see a bunch of other players
on the ground.
On the ground, yeah,
right.
And that is awesome. You're fighting side by side players you don't know. And honestly. I've been hitting the deep space encounters, the new Borg ones, fairly regularly because I'm trying to level up a character.
Yeah, and they're great XP.
And you know what? I start recognizing some of the same names, and now I've never even talked to the guy. So if you're watching, hi. But we group up anytime we see each other in an instance, and it's just. Like, I don't know, I got a little...
starting to learn each other's tactics, the regular powers you use.
And it's kind of fun. So if, now if we could do the flip side, it kind of would be neat to see the same person now on the ground.
And see how much he sucks there.
Yeah, or you'll see how much I suck. One or the other, yeah. I'll stay back and be the healer. But I do agree it's a solo. One of the things that I would love, and I know this is tough, especially with the changes coming to the Klingons, but I've always fantasized getting a weekly series mission where there was some PvP going on.
Yep.
Inside the weekly mission.
We've been told that one of the future upcoming featured episodes will include a new PvP map as part of the content that rolls out alongside it.
I don't know if that means it's going to be part of the mission, though. I would love to see something where you actually run into other players. I know that's difficult to do, but I would love to see that.
But you know what? This whole ground invasion Borg thing could potentially be a new technology that we see take off in STO. That could be new adventure zones launched on a fairly regular basis where players from both factions could potentially interact with one another and actually, adventure together. We've seen it now in the deep space encounters, kind of limited. You can only get 5 people in there. If these ground zones can support 20, 25 at a time, that's a great social reason. It's always great in an MMO to see other players, even if you don't interact with them. It's one of the reasons that I've always been such a proponent of sector space. Well, even though it's got its own share of issues.
That's one of the things that made me change my mind about getting rid of sector space, because I used to be a proponent of traveling from the bridge of your ship, until you mentioned that's really the only time you see other ships.
Right.
Maybe to wrap up the Ask Cryptic, one of the things that was kind of brought up in there is changing the way things affect your appearance on your ships, but also I swore we've recently had a mention about costume changes too, and about how some of the things where you can go in and disable like your kit's visual effects.
Well, the question in the Ask Cryptic was whether or not specifically the Riemann shield would be available as if you could enable that as a costume option, but wear different equipment, because it's not a great piece of equipment. But it's pretty.
What I think we're hinting towards is because there's also talk about it for changing in the costume editor for some of the things that affect your ground players in a different Ask Cryptic. I think Cryptic might be acknowledging one of the issues with STO is that your characters don't reflect your progression.
Well, they do to a certain extent.
They do in the build, but on the ground they don't really. I mean,
that's true.
On
Unless
the ground,
you've enabled your armor and kit effects, you can't tell one character.
I mean, like in space, obviously, if I'm in the Galaxy X, or if I'm in, if right now I'm in, a cruiser that's the Enterprise A, obviously know where I'm at. But on ground, not so much. And I think maybe as you get more people doing free to play, it's always a good carrot. When you're playing another MMO and somebody walks up to you and they're 10 times the size of you and they've got armor hanging off of them, you're like, damn, I want that. I don't know. Maybe.
You're absolutely
correct. I hope
correct.
they're thinking towards that.
It entices you not only to be interested in that player potentially, because obviously they have experience, but it also entices you to stick around so that you can be that awesome person one day that you walk up next to a noob and they go, wow.
And reflect that I'm the boss. I got ground, like the chat room saying, we like to see ground visuals show good ground progression, and that's totally what it is.
Now, I think that there's also a second way to this, is that despite the fact that your ships show your progression, and everybody knows what a high-end, what a Negvar is a high-end Klingon ship. Newbies don't have Negvars. But everybody has the same Negvar. Yeah. Or they can only choose from 2 or 3 different skins. Yeah. So the option to have things like the Riemann shield, for example. Let's say you could enable the Riemann shield effect, but still have your Borg or Aegis shield equipped. So you would instead
that doesn't seem technically right. It seems like you need to have that equipment equipped in order to make the ship do that thing.
That's what they were saying for the existing equipment, but the Ask Cryptic indicates that may be an option with future equipment of some sort. That possibly something that you can gain unlocks the option in the ship tailor.
I'd like
for you to add an extra bit to your ship.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the Ask Cryptic before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to point out that Stahl absolutely ruined ponies forever.
Yeah, that's
forever.
True. Yeah.
I can never look at ponies or mention them in conversation the same.
Sad panda. All right, now J-Man, turn on your sexy music because it is time for a very sexy Tweet Leaks, J-Man.
That intro made me a little uncomfortable.
All right. Well, I'll change it up. Let's talk a little Star Trek. That'll make you feel better. We got
actually, on the subject of sexy.
Yeah, actually, this ship is kind of sexy.
It really is.
So our Captain Logan's got a tweet leak here for us that shows the Vigilant. What's the new
Venture?
Venture. A Venture hooked up with a Galaxy X in a bar, and they had a passionate night. That's where the sexy comes in, right?
That's where the sexy. Yeah.
And they made a baby that looks like Galaxy X with some Venture parts on it.
It looks great. I've never been a huge fan of the Galaxy X, honestly, and it looked a little awkward with the third nacelle and everything. But with this Venture skin on it. Really nice. Really nice. This is making me interested in potentially buying a Venture. I've never flown a Galaxy in STO.
Oh, God, I'd love to see your reaction to the Galaxy X. I would love to see.
I remember your first reaction to the Galaxy.
Oh, no.
That was him trying to turn.
Yeah. And I didn't have like any consoles or anything that was because I just jumped in the ship. Yeah, I was totally not spec'd for it, and it was brutal. But, you can fix that. Yeah, I would like to see what you think on it. Plus, you get to play with that cloak and that spiral lance.
Spinal Lance, yeah.
Spinal Lance, right. All right, let's talk about the second tweet leak there, which is...
it's from Gozer.
Gozer about the STFs, right?
Now, he hasn't been quite as vocal over this past week about the STF changes, but there's one more thing that came out. You remember last week we mentioned that some of those gates are going to start shooting back at you?
Yeah.
Apparently some people got really upset about this. Like, why are you making it so hard? I don't like it hard.
It's an STF.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a little hard. Well, he did clarify that those gates that are going to be shooting back might not be spawning as many or any helpers to help out with them.
Oh.
So it's instead just the gate that you get to focus on and take out and destroy. So
that's not so bad.
Yeah, good news for people that might have been a little bit concerned with that particular change.
Yeah, I guess so. And of course, links to all of that in the show notes if you guys want to go see those pictures yourselves or anything we talked about, including just some bullet points of some of the stuff we pulled out. You can get all of that over at jupiterbroadcasting.com and then go look for STOked 97.
That's this episode.
All right, J-Man, let's jump into the Foundry Files. All right, J-Man, it's time for the Foundry Files. We've equipped the headphones, and we're at the Foundry Files news desk here in the holodeck with our Foundry squad ready to come on here and give us their full report. In fact, they actually launched a 3-week-long search to get you a really good KDF Foundry mission.
Not as easy as it might sound. I mean, you would think that there would be a lot of Klingons out there making KDF missions just because the Foundry is one of their few means of getting new content. Yeah. Not so. I don't know if this is just a matter of the same old chicken and egg argument or what.
The guys took it on as a personal mission to find a good one. In fact, I'll give you a little, here's the high-level stats. It's got 1,163 plays at the time of recording the review, and also an average rating of 3.9 stars. So I'm curious to see what the Foundry guys thought. So we've got them on Skype.
We also have a special treat here. Yeah. We have the author joining us, who is Havraha. The name of the mission, by the way, is Time the Enemy.
Yeah, Time the Enemy.
Let's get into our...
Guys, welcome to the Foundry Files. Welcome back.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
Before we start asking questions, I do want to say this is going to be kind of a spoilery episode.
Oh, okay.
Because we will be asking questions to Havraha. So if you don't want any spoilers, just going to say right off the bat, go play the mission. It's really good, and you'll enjoy it.
I agree. But actually, this was one of the very first Foundry missions that I ever played, way back in the day. So I can't guarantee that my commentary on this is up to date, because I'm sure that Hav has made some changes to it.
So you played this one?
Way back on Tribble. Yeah, I did play this.
Oh, wow. So like when Foundry was new.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting enough that we have an old mission that's getting reviewed here, because we've also done that. One of our first ones, I think, was an older mission that kind of...
So let's dig right into here. The first topic, as usual, is the story, and I think we're going to primarily be doing this as like a Q&A, right? So take it away, guys.
Guys, let's kick it off.
So, Havraha, could you tell us a little bit about how you came up with this mission concept?
This all started when I checked out early days of holodeck of Foundry, what was going on Klingon side? Because I was making a helmet and back for Federation and thought, there's got to be some good stuff over there in Klingons. I went and checked, and there's pretty much Captain Revo making a bunch of Klingon stuff, no one else. And I thought, oh man, I need to make something myself. But I'm not a really huge hardcore Klingon fan. I don't know the language. I didn't feel like I had the credentials for Klingon awesomeness. So I started to think about, well, what would make a Klingon mission different from any other mission? And I tried to think about how Klingon space would be different from Federation space. And mainly I thought about, well, if this is a conquering empire that's gone about and from the very early days of going into space, walked around and conquered planets, what kind of effect would it have on the star system, that quadrant of space on a whole? Mm-hmm. And what struck me was it would probably end up being a dog-eat-dog world. I mean, the ones that would survive not being assimilated and absorbed and annexed into the Klingon Empire would probably have to be these rough aliens that would be able to fight off a Klingon, or it'd probably have a dramatic effect on how civilizations develop intergalactically.
That's a great angle to start at.
And also, additionally, this mission gets very far away from the stereotypical Federation idea of the Prime Directive. Klingons have no such directive.
Right.
So you can,
cool. And so I kind of realized that if this was the case, the Klingons would probably use this kind of like extortion racket, kind of an ability to.
I got that impression playing through this as my Klingon. I did feel a little bit like a local mafia boss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
I did.
I mean, why
some of the dialogue
why would you want to waste all your resources trying to conquer, forcibly subjugating an entire race when you can just walk up to them and go, hey, guys, this is the nature of the universe. Everything out here is going to try to eat you alive. You want to pay us
little protection money,
and we'll protect you.
All right, so Irish and Uyu, do you have any specific commentary to add on this?
The way he actually went in and did this, Klingons get portrayed as a little kind of dumb at times in terms of it's like Klingon smash and that's about all you get. Mm-hmm. What I liked in this mission was that you actually get to see some inner workings of potentially how the Klingon Empire works, how they absorb new cultures. And as you said it, Jeremy, it actually comes across, it does look like a mafia protection racket the way they played it. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to see it done the way. And one of the things I was talking to Hav about was when he was coming up with the mission concept and as he just went through the background to it there, what led him to use the way he did it with without spoiling it too much, a secret facility behind enemy lines, if you want to pick up on that one, Hav?
Yeah, I wanted something to really go wrong, and with this, obviously. Sure. So there's a bit of a mystery to be found. And it made a lot more sense for this to be a Starfleet problem. Something Starfleet has done wrong. And this isn't surprising to me because I don't really trust governments. Even the good governments can do shady things wrong in the background. So it made sense for me to me that Starfleet would be doing something shady that not even they themselves would advertise. And to hide it, Klingon spies are looking towards Federation space. Why not go behind the Klingon spies and do it in their space, underground, someplace where they'd never find it? No one ever find this.
I also, just as a side point, I really enjoy the fact that this kind of helped reinforce the civil war between the Klingon, not just the Klingons specifically, but the whole KDF faction. With the Federation, just having this whole chain of events take place helped reinforce that animosity.
Gave some background to it.
Yeah, I mean it's bad enough that the Starfleet is out there, harassing the Klingons, but this is just happening in KDF territory.
Right.
So it impacts even this neutral, somewhat race that is involved with the mission. Any last thoughts on the story before we move on to some of the technical aspects of this mission?
You spend much time developing the story?
I spend almost all my time developing the story, honestly. I spend like a couple of weeks, really, on every mission I do, thinking about the story. And then I actually get into the Foundry and realize I have no patience whatsoever. Actually make things in the Foundry. So a lot of times it's me spending almost all my time thinking about it and making it make sense. Because I think 90% of the Foundry is story, really, if you want to make a good one. Mm-hmm. And if you don't put the effort into your story, everything else... It's ultimately, at the end of the day, the Foundry is shooty and clicky on stuff. And after that, the only thing that left there to entice people is your story. So you got to put that effort into it.
In addition to story, I think another big enticement is some of the technical aspects. We've seen this happen in the previous big mission that we reviewed here, the Empok Nor. There were some very complicated technical elements there, really ramped up the enjoyment of that. So let's talk a little bit about the technical aspects of this mission. And let's go ahead. Murphy, you got something to start with us here?
Yeah, so when you first warp into the first space map, there is this anomaly that you have, and you see it throughout the mission in both the space and the ground. So how did you decide on this element during your mission?
I wanted there to be something, a visual cue for the player to immediately realize something's wrong. And I knew from the get-go that I wanted this to involve radiation, chronoton radiation. And I was like, what am I going to use for this? And sure enough, there's an effect in the Foundry called radiation. So that was pretty much surefire option to just drop down there. And
yet more evidence that you're really lazy when it comes to technical stuff.
Exactly. Now, on the last map, it does get to this point where I added some an additional effect that was this kind of green fog. So it does, when you get closer to the source of this radiation, it starts to become a little bit more toxic looking and dangerous.
So in some ways, it might be considered kind of a minimalistic approach to the storytelling here. I mean, like we said earlier, Spirits of Ramaknor, by the way, is the correct term, not Impaknor. It was a very technical mission that drew you into the story, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that it's a necessity to use those technical aspects. In fact, you guys, Foundry team actually gave this a 7.69 on the total technical score, which is pretty darn high. I think actually right on par with what was given for Ramaknor. So is that primarily, just for a question for the Foundry Files guys, is that primarily because there was nothing that was overbearing, like it wasn't overused, or what exactly led you to give it such a high score despite not being technically involved?
A lot of that is because there were no technical elements in there to complicate it or get in the way of the story itself. So the technical aspects that were in there did the job. They literally did it. He had everything he needed to do to get the story across, and that's what took front stage, I suppose, or center stage. The technical stuff just melts into the background.
All right.
Yeah, there is a problem sometimes where Foundry authors will just use either random effects or just too many effects, and it's just too much. And this was just a good amount.
Okay. Very nice. Now, what about the overall gameplay of this mission? We've talked about how the story flows. We've talked about the technical aspects some, but when it really comes down to playing through this mission, do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I always want to know, is there any good space combat?
Yeah.
There is. In a lot of missions, you just fight ships, but in this one, you actually fight like these drones, which Havraha used mines as ththese costumes for these enemy ships. So you get attacked by these drones.
Cool.
And what made you choose to have the player go up against drones?
I just wanted something to be a bit different from the generic kind of ships you can go against. I didn't want them to be too strong. I wanted them to be like, this is a defense mechanism that this plan's put up, and obviously, what other way to do it than drones? Something to be lying there and waiting for something to fly up and try to conquer them. So,
and I actually want to say, kind of a spoiler, but those drones come back at a later act in the mission, and they really take you by surprise. I won't give too much more away from that, but that was a nice element to see used in here.
Yeah.
In fact, as you progress through, both in the space combat and the ground combat portion of this, you start to see this race that you're interacting with become more and more militant. For reasons that are explained in the story. It was really nice to have an actual in-game, this goes into story a little bit too, but the progression of the mission was reflected in the gameplay itself. And
so you could see like their attitudes changing and their approach and stuff like that.
And it also affected the way that you were interacting with the environment and the story and the gameplay elements.
So you feel like the world is evolving as your story evolves.
Absolutely.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. That sounds like gameplay is pretty interesting.
What about the ground combat? Anything specific you guys want to touch on?
I found specifically the ground combat both interesting and difficult in a way sometimes, because you've made the groups, the mobs, have one of the group stand in the middle of the door where you can blatantly see it, and the rest around the side where they will ambush you. So if you just blunder into that first guy, you're going to get flanked from every side. And I found that rather very surprising, because I died multiple times on that.
Was that done on purpose,
really
Yeah, it was on purpose. Oh yeah, there's only so many different ways you can lay down an enemy mob, especially indoors. When you're outside, you can lay them on a hill, you can hide them behind trees, and all of a sudden things become more active.
Sure.
When you're in a room, you're in an indoor space, what are you gonna do? And I had to lay down some of these mobs and hit them around so many crates and things throughout the mission. I was like, well, how else can I do? I decided to just let them ambush you. There's another aspect of that, too, that's going to be probably difficult for players, is that I made them Federation. And the Federation are actually some of the hardest mobs to fight. And it's because
they're really
heal
heavy
themselves.
on healing,
Yeah, and they lay everything down. And the bigger problem with this, and this is a limitation within the Foundry, you can't properly know beforehand what position a enemy mob's going to fill when it lays down. So it'll either be a science guy or a tactical guy or an engineer guy. There's no way for you to know.
Right.
So it's kind of hard for me to label them properly too.
Oh, yeah.
Because that label is not random. I can't say it's an Elry science officer because he may end up being a tactical. So I end up having to label them all just Elry. And that makes it really hard to fight them because now you have to sit there and watch them and judge and see if one's healing and one's laying down shield heals and what have you. And you have to have a much more hands-on examination of the combat while you're playing this mission to win.
So I guess let's mention this. The overall game score that the Foundry Files guys gave us was a 7.6. So that's a pretty good rating.
For the gameplay of it.
For the gameplay aspect. But the overall summary of the game, I don't know, maybe we should jump into your guys' summary thoughts?
Yeah, overall, Hav's already touched on one piece of this, and it's something that comes up consistently when we're talking about missions. You really have only two ways in this game to do anything. You fight in space, you fight on the ground. Everything else is dressing that up, disguising it, and hiding it within story. And story is the key to Foundry. This mission is a great example of technical aspects not getting in the way of a story being told. And I'm pretty sure he's going to turn around and tell you there's going to be sequels involved because there's a few jump points here that could be really interesting.
Did you ever feel like, so you had like the dog pile situation and things like that? How was from that perspective?
The overall combat in that regard was actually all right. Though I didn't feel dogpile. It was just the only difficulty I had was all the ambushing on the ground. I
got to say, just like you guys said earlier, the potential for a sequel here is pretty immense, not just in a direct follow-up to this, but involving this race that Havraha has created in the Elry.
I like that.
Do you have any solid plans to do a KDF follow-up on this or a Fed spin-off or anything like that?
I have a lot, actually. I had never intended this to happen. I kind of intended to be kind of a standalone mission, tied up, but not too tied up, leaving people to think about them later on in the future, what have you. And then someone left me a review that said, what keeps them from turning the reactor back on? I went, oh, crap. And that just kind of made me realize, well, wait, why not work off this? And so there is another one I'm coming out with called Time the Mirror, which is going to be kind of a direct sequel to this, and very, very story complex. Lots of backstory to that one, and probably a third one after that, if I have the slots to do it.
Well, so, complexity will happen when you include temporal mechanics.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's more than typical mechanics, too. It's also...
It's the anomaly on the planet.
Oh, you guys are making my head hurt already.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Do we have any last-minute thoughts before we wrap up our segment here?
Yes, you can check out the official review in the show notes, and you can also email us at foundryfiles@jupiterforce.net, where you can send us Foundry mission ideas for ones you want us to check out. You can send us comments on the show. You can send us complaints about Uyu's camera freezing up if that happens. You can email us and reach us there.
He made it through this one for a change.
That's true. Very cool. And then, Irish, I know you wanted to give a couple of mentions for Starbase UGC, right?
Yeah, it's always one I want to get in there because it's something that helps us out so much in terms of the technical aspects. Starbase UGC, the tutorials over there, the IRC chat room for the community. Like, you're not going to learn anything with Foundry unless you get involved with that team.
Well, and Havraha, who we've got on this episode, is also one of the podcasters for Podcast UGC. So there's an obvious plug there that I won't include.
What? No, definitely check that out, especially if you're becoming an early Foundry enthusiast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great resource.
Every week we do talk about Foundry stuff on that podcast, and probably for a little bit too long. So maybe do a few missions and
well, if you guys love the Foundry Files, then you'll probably love Podcast
absolutely.
UGC. Yeah.
All right, Foundry Files team, thanks for coming on and give us another review. And Havraha, thanks for coming on and talking about your mission, and of course links to everything we've talked about in the show notes as well. The complete review and the title, so you can get the spelling right and go search for it on your own. And let us know what you think. Leave us a comment. All right, J-Man, that wraps up the Foundry Files. And welcome to Community Feedback. Now, this week, we're going to bring on a couple of fleet leaders and ask them what they do to get over content droughts. But
well, not just that, but just to keep your fleet strong in general.
A strong fleet's a good fleet. But before we get to that, let's cover the results from last week's poll. We asked you, give us your gut reaction to Star Trek Online going free to play.
Is it good or is it bad?
Well, J-Man, let me break it down for you. Actually, not too unsurprising, although, I'll put a footnote on that. 80% of the people weighed in and said it's a good thing.
I had a feeling that majority would, but to be honest, I thought it'd be a little more one-sided. I was thinking 90-10, somewhere in that region.
Yeah, I was too. So 20% to clock in and say it's a bad thing was actually about 10% more than I expected.
I think that part of this came from the fact that we've spent a lot of brain space on this. So we're pretty much sold, whether we sold ourselves on it or what.
It's true.
But when you think it through, we've pretty much figured out free-to-play is going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
But we asked people for the gut reaction.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
Still, though, we had about 1,000 people enter the poll, so to have 80% say that it was a good thing, I think is a pretty good. I think so, at least for your gut reaction. All right.
I agree with the 80% of you.
I do too.
The other 20%, I don't know who or what you're thinking.
Well, we'll see. We talked about it earlier in the show. Hopefully, they've already watched.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's move on. So let's talk to. First of all, it's going to be a little self-referential here. We've brought on one of our own good buddies of the show because he runs the Jupiter Force fleet, the fleet here of the show.
Actually, this gives me a good opportunity to make a little disclaimer here, though. When STO first launched, we ran Jupiter Force. You and I did. We were admins on the site. We handled all the recruitment and everything, but it just became too much for us to do a show and a fleet. So we've handed the entire thing off, and now we're just basically figureheads. We don't run Jupiter Force anymore. So
we just enjoy it. We just play.
Yeah, it's our fan fleet.
But
so all the stuff that we're going to be talking about, one specific thing that we're talking with the fleet leader of Jupiter Force on, we didn't invent. This came out of them entirely.
True.
So
all right, we're going to put our headphones on, and we're going to we'll bring on Asmic here, who is the leader of Jupiter Force, and of course also just an all-around great guy. Asmic, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me. Welcome, everybody.
Now, of course, you also go by Maverick in game? Is that your name, or is that your?
I go by Maverick or Asmic. I do have a character in game. It's Maverick at Asmic, but most of the people in the fleet call me Mav.
Okay. Now, Mav, we wanted to bring you on the show because really, one of the things that Jupiter Force has recently done is this ribbon system, and it's kind of given like this whole new level of excitement. Now, there's other things that fleets do to encourage gamer playment and involvement.
Yeah, we got tons of feedback regarding like fleet events and everything like that. But really, the core reason that I wanted to bring Mav to the show to talk about this ribbon system is because it takes it a step further.
Yeah.
It motivates people to be involved with those events.
Is that really what it was there, Mav? Was the whole idea here is to come up with a system to motivate people?
Absolutely. The fleet, of course, everybody has had their issues with STO recently, and with some people's opinions being lack of content. When I came on board, I wanted to create a system that brought not only the players together, whether they were new to the fleet or old to the fleet, but to create a level of internal competition, allowed us to branch off into the fleet events, and it allowed me to award or reward those members for their longevity, their contributions in the fleet as a whole together.
Was your inspiration accolades really in game? Is that kind of what sort of like it's like a whole abstraction layer out of accolades, right? Because you have accolades for achievements in game, and now you guys can throw in achievements for anything you want, like funny things or real achievement things.
One of my favorite ribbons that's been added recently actually is a Wesley ribbon. I think it's acting ensign or something like that. It's basically been awarded. It's being awarded to people in the fleet for being obscenely immature. I think was that so. It's not something you want to strive for, but if you're awarded the Wesley ribbon and it looks like his jumper from season 1.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So there's a little artwork involved. That's cool.
Actually, that's a good switching off point here. Asmic, you want to tell us a little bit about the technical side of the ribbons, what it took to get this all working and in place?
The development of the site, I created the concept, and then I actually went to the fleet and polled them for their abilities, what they could do, what they couldn't do, and got to learn more about my members by figuring out what their other hidden talents were. I found some great coders, some great programmers, people who were good with graphics, who were also able to help me create my idea and then put it into fruition. PHP coding, website administration. The site is a microsite spin-off of our actual JupiterForce.org site. And it just worked out really well being able to get all the members involved. And then once it was released, there was just a huge applaud about it. Everybody wanted everybody's ribbons. Of course, there was some elitism, but overall, it created a very fun environment.
I absolutely love it, and I got to applaud your efforts on this. I'm proud to have you as a member, as our leader of Jupiter Force.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to get my next ribbon, J-Man. I want my next ribbon.
They've got them for fleet actions and STF, so it's easy to get a whole slew of them, but then some of the fun ones are actually the hard ones.
I love it. I love it. So it gets people involved and interested in playing and gives you a whole new objective, and I think that's really what was key, when I thought about this content drought thing and what Jupiter Force is doing, is these ribbons give people a whole nother reason to play again. So, Mav, thanks for coming on the show and sharing some of the Jupiter Force has done to get people going through these rough, tough times. And you're
very welcome. Anytime.
And what would be a good way for people to get a hold of you or maybe get in touch with you if they're interested in Jupiter Force or want to find out more?
Very quickly, you can go to jupiterforce.org or you can message me in-game at Asmic anytime.
All right, now on the line we have Mike from the UFP fleet, the United Federation of Planets fleet.
Oh, planets. I thought it was potty mouths.
No, planets. Turns out it's canon. We just looked it up. We never heard of it before. No, I shouldn't say that. People believe us. Mike, thanks for joining us in this community feedback segment. We know that you guys are doing some special things, but J-Man, lay it on us.
There's two things that I wanted to pick your brain about. You actually sent us a huge email with all the stuff that UFP does. It sounds like a lot of fun, but the first one I want to talk to you about is this new assimilation thing that you guys are doing on your fleet's website.
I love
right?
this, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what it is that you're actually doing here.
Basically, with the recent Borg events that we've been hosting both in-game and on our forums, we did this with the intention of pushing a much greater internal emphasis on the Borg invasions. And it's evolved over time actually to involve an actual sort of in-house form event, which involves the assimilation of actual member accounts with a Borg account, which is actually turned out to be quite popular. And
that's great.
Getting into the mood as a Borg.
So the core feature, did this start as an internal event, or was this primarily motivated to get people excited about the Cryptic run Borg events?
It was mainly for the Borg invasions. It was just sort of a prelude to what will be coming through Cryptic's Borg invasions, and it was just sort of something to get people hyped up for when it was going to come out.
So that's great, but it's been entirely outside of game, all on your website, right?
Exactly, yeah. The entire thing is basically just a theme and sort of an in-house form event with the assimilation.
That's really cool.
Now, you guys have another form of game that you do too, right?
Yeah. Oh, this one is the first one that got me wanting to talk to Mike. Before I heard about the Borg event, he told me just a little bit. He hasn't actually explained this to me yet, so I get to hear this live. But they have a voice chat centric event that they call Changelings. Mike, do you want to give us just a kind of or at least maybe that's the name that I gave it, but it's about Changelings.
Oh, okay.
And you want to give us kind of a high-level explanation of how the event kind of plays out?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Sure. Yeah, this is one of our more popular events on TeamSpeak. And it's basically a voiceover game that's played entirely over TeamSpeak. It's usually held after special events, such as our awards ceremony, or maybe even a large-scale in-game fleet event on STO. And it's loosely based off the famous card game of Mafia. However, we've tailored the game for Star Trek fans alike, as that's an area our membership they share a common link with.
I really like that.
Yeah. But, just to sum it up really quickly so that, people who haven't played the card game get it. It's basically two teams are at work, which change after each round. The Romulans make up one team under assault by a group of changelings on the other team. And basically, the Romulan team, being as paranoid as they are, have to collectively decide through a vote which of their members is potentially the changeling. Awesome. So it really brings up a lot of conspiracy as to who's killing.
I can see that's perfect in the voice chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, everyone's they're well engaged with it.
And you said that you usually host these events after other fleet events that you run, like you said, an award ceremony and things like that. So it gets people interested in potentially participating in this game.
And it capitalizes on attendance, right? So you don't have to schedule a whole other thing. It's like people stick around. We're going to do this afterwards.
Yeah, so it's tenfold or twofold. So people that come to the event, the award ceremony in this case, can stick around and play the game. And people that just want to play the game are more likely to attend the ceremony as well, so they can know when to be there.
See, these are a lot of great reasons to join a fleet that are even completely outside the game.
Yeah.
And that are things that Cryptic themselves would never do because it's just not in their scope.
And they don't exactly have the community-focused ability to do this kind of one-on-one event thing. So kudos, hats off to UFP for getting this stuff together.
Now, Mike, what would be a good way for people if they want to find out more information about your fleet and maybe get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, if you want to read more about the event, there's much more information on it. Or if you want to just read more about the UFP in general, you can visit us on our website at www.ufplanets.com, and everything will be there.
Right on. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man.
One more quick plug for UFP is that you and I are probably going to be appearing in their newsletter that they do in the near future as well.
Cool. Yeah. That'll be fun. All right, well, we'll wrap up the show here at this point. Now, before we go, though, we want to lay down our community feedback question for next week, which involves, of course, the free-to-play news. J-Man?
Well, you guys know that the free-to-play matrix that came out recently has a whole bunch of disclaimers listed there about it's all in flux. It's all a work in progress.
Subject to change.
And there's actually a thread there in the forum started by, I believe, by Stormshade that says, if you guys have feedback on the Matrix, things you'd like to see changed, leave your feedback here. So we're going to be doing that too.
Yeah. What do you guys want to see changed?
Yeah.
I would be really curious to know. And now what we like to do in these community feedbacks is let us know over at the show notes page down in the comment section, because then other people get to read and leave comments on there. And then also vote with those like buttons, because we're taking those into consideration too to see which ones have been liked more, so we know what you guys...
if somebody else leaves a comment that you like,
hit it. Smack that like button, and then we'll know.
It doesn't hook up to Facebook or any crap like that. It's all on our site.
It's all internal to the comment site. We just use it to weigh them when we're looking at them for the reviews. So, again, that's what changes would you like to see made to the free-to-play Matrix. And if you want to, you can go ahead and include some overall general thoughts, too, if you need to get those off your chest.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and share one real quick here just to kind of get your brain juices
Get the ball rolling.
And I will fully admit, I was discussing this with the chat room before the show, and I took a little heat.
Don't you love the live stream? You guys got to join us
it.
live. It's so awesome.
Yeah, you really do. Saturdays, 11 a.m. Pacific. But I might still take some heat from this, but it's still my proposal, is to... I know that Perfect World doesn't agree in gating off content, but what about delaying content slightly for free-to-play members?
So it's like a gate that opens automatically at a certain point.
My proposal would be so that gold members get the access to the featured episodes as they roll out on the Saturday when they're launched. Every gold member, anybody that's subscribing or is a lifetimer, gets it on that day, but that silver members are delayed in some way, whether that's they don't get it until the following Monday, or maybe not until the entire series is available.
I'll tell you, J-Man, I think that's a good one. You know what? Because I think the problem with that one is it's not going to happen, because it doesn't sound like Perfect World's MO.
Probably not.
And also the other problem with featured episodes, big chance for spoilers.
Oh, spoilers. Yeah, that's true. But on the other hand, huge enticement to get people interested in playing that content, and they will get it eventually.
And I would totally pay. As a Star Trek fan, I would totally pay. Like, I would buy a Star Trek comic. I would buy one of those featured episodes.
Yep.
It'd be that kind of same mental purchase for me. It's a little story time to get
so
to
it's
play.
got its pluses. It's got its downsides, too.
But it would definitely be a revenue generator. And I think the goal behind the revenue generating ideas is more developers, more artwork.
I mean, we all want to see Cryptic succeed, because if Cryptic succeeds, Stowe will succeed, and vice versa.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
So let us know your thoughts. You can also email us, STOked@JupiterBroadcasting.com. Now, like we mentioned earlier, Stoked is live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Pacific over at jblive.tv. And usually we tune in and have a little pre-show. And honestly, this thing goes on for hours. Right now, it's almost 2
o'clock.
And when we started at probably around 10:40.
And you guys might have noticed, because we're not wearing the same shirts, that Foundry Files episode was not filmed today.
Oh, did you catch that? Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, you let them, geez, J-Man, that's a little magic they weren't supposed to know about.
Oh, well.
All right, everyone. Well, be sure to tune in for episode 98, and we'll have it right over here at JupiterBroadcasting.com every single Tuesday. That's when you can download in any format you like, iPod, HD, audio only.
Just go subscribe to the RSS.
And I want to give a quick mention.
Come to you.
This is a shameless plug, but this show, we've been drinking these Honest Tea, they're called Honest Aid, Super Fruit Punch. These things are delicious. You know what? We're going to put a link in the show notes. Yeah. If you buy these from Amazon.com, we get a little percentage of it. And
it costs you nothing extra.
And it's like we just decided to throw these in here because they're like so good that you guys will love these. It'll be going great with a Stowe gaming session.
We should start plugging our sandwiches if they were available on Amazon.
Well, you know what I like about it is that, first of all, it's organic, and second of all, it's way better for you than pop. And when I play, I love to sip on something.
Yeah.
It's either booze, pop, or now it's going to be juice.
Yep.
So there you go. You can link in the show notes for that as well. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching this week's episode of Stoked, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday.
Hair check.
Hair is good to go. All right, so it's so we'll probably be like a minute.
A minute and a half.
We'll probably be like a minute
43.
Maybe a minute 43. Maybe we'll probably be a minute 43, and then we'll get started. It doesn't look like he's gonna be ready in a minute 43, does it? Okay, all right.